Good morning, good evening, or good night, wherever in the world you are. Hope you are well, and welcome to your latest Nottingham Forest news. In today's news, we will, of course, pay our respects to the greatest manager of all time. We will be talking about an injury blow to a striker at Nottingham Forest, but also some good news on an injury front as well. And we will be talking about Marinakis sacking one of his managers. Plenty of other stuff as well to cover, so we will get into it. But as always, before we do, if you'd be kind enough to give the video a quick like, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and if you'd like to become a member, it's only 99p, and that will get you all the perks, including all the Forest players emojis as well that you can spam in the chat. Let's get on with it, and of course, we can only start with the great man himself. On the 20th of September 2004, we lost one of football, if not football's greatest manager of all time, to stomach cancer. Brian Clough will always be Forest's greatest ever manager, and the memories and the thoughts and the trophies he brought to us, some will argue, may never be replicated. He was before my generation. I caught him as a young kid towards the end of his managerial career at Nottingham Forest, but even as a kid, you knew the aura about him. You knew the legacy, and everything about him just represented everything we still are now about Nottingham Forest. Brian Clough, I mean, what is there to say about him that we could say in a video? We don't have enough time to cover everything off. His honour list goes on. The history that he brought to us is unbelievable. From winning the division title in the 77-78 era, to League Cups, which spanned to 4, 77 and 78, the 79, the 89 and the 90. And of course, we got, in pure famous fashion, the 2 European Cups in 79 and in the 80 season. On top of that, he won us the European Super Cup, the Anglo-Scottish Cup, the Charity Shield in 78. Guys, there's nothing short of using the word legend with him. Now, the word legend is thrown around very easily this day, but it's people like him that actually create the foundation of what it really means to be a legend. We miss him terribly. We still watch, and I still do, and I'm sure you guys still do, the old video clips of him, his interviews, the way he would just, command an interview, say it as it is, and it's just the beauty of him. Football was simplified. Football was played in the right way. People respected him. People listened to him. And his opinions were always spot on. Brian Clough, we salute you as the greatest Forest manager, if not the greatest manager of all time. Thank you, my friend. Normally, of course, we would change the picture down below to whichever the news topic is, but I think it's quite fitting that we'd just leave it there for the whole of the video as we talk about the rest of the Nottingham Forest news. And we're going to start with Emmanuel Dennis. Now, this one's a bit of a weird one because it's been brought in the news that he is now injured. He got called up into the Nigerian squad as he was, as their other striker became injured, so he came up as backup. And they're now saying that he has himself got an injury. What the injury is and what the extent of the injury is, we still don't know yet. But of course, as soon as we do, I'll either post it on Twitter, Wolverine8125, or we'll add it into the next news video as well. But worrying times as well, because a lot of us fans were calling for Dennis to be played. Dennis, every time he comes on for his 5-minute cameo, for me, has impacted the game in some way or another. He just hasn't been given enough playing time. But I think this is a huge blow to us, and hopefully it's only a short-term injury, and we need him back on the pitch as soon as possible. In fact, we need him starting, in my opinion, over maybe the likes of Lingard in a formation change, but we've discussed that plenty of times. But currently, he is injured. I will bring to you the details of that injury as soon as I have them, but an injury blow, to say the least, for Nottingham Forest. But with every cloud, there is a silver lining, and you will be pleased to hear that Moussa Niakhate is back from his injury. In fact, he's been called up to the international squad for Senegal to represent them. Now, in a way, this worries me, as I still would like him. I was hoping over the next 2 weeks he could rest up and get himself back to full 100% fitness. I'll be watching their matches with my head behind a pillow, hoping that one, he doesn't start, and two, if he does, that he takes it very, very easy. We need this guy so badly. We have seen the difference from a defense with Musa in it to the defense without it in it. He is commanding, he is strong, he is fast, he is agile, he's everything you want in a centre back. He's left-footed as well, which is very rare these days in a defender. But Musa, if you're listening, bro, please take it easy. We need you for the Leicester match, so make sure. Maybe this will help with his match fitness, maybe something like that. But outside of that, please, bro, take it easy. The whole of Nottingham is rooting for you to come back without an injury. But really good news on that, and hopefully we should be seeing him in the Leicester game. Now, will Cooper blood him straight back in? I think he has no choice but to, especially if he's 100% fit. He needs to be on that pitch straight away, and the difference will be night and day with that defense. What I will say is, let's not put all the eggs in the Musa basket, because it's not one man who can defend. You need a whole defensive unit. So yes, he will make a huge difference, but the players around him will need to step their game up as well to get onto his level. And also the right selection of players needs to be done as well. Niakhate can play in either a 3 or a 5-back or a 4-back, should I say. Predominantly, though, he is still better on the left side of a 3. Now, we've been using him as a central CB, if you like, if that's the correct terminology. But really, in McKenna's place is the one he shines. The other thing he brings that people tend to ignore is leadership. I've spoken on a video a couple of days ago about how we are lacking in leaders. And when he signed, I actually thought he would be made captain. Now, long term, he may end up being the Forest captain, but at the moment, he can bring those leadership qualities that, in my mind, are severely lacking. When Forest are conceding 1 goal now, it tends to, avalanche into 2 or 3. With the likes of Niakhate in the team, he should be able to have that strong leadership resilience that will stop those things from happening. So, please, Musa, we're begging, come back fully fit, ready for the Leicester match. But good news for Forest. And speaking of other key players that have been injured that should be back now, we can move on to Orel Mangala. He should be back. He should be fully fit, and I don't think he's going away on international duty either, so he can work his way back up to full fitness. Originally, he should have been available for the Fulham match, but he had a slight setback which delayed his progress back into full fitness, or the first team, whatever way you want to look at it, by only a few days. So, Leicester match being, not this Saturday, but the Saturday after, well, Monday even, he should be back and fully fit. So we are now looking and can start to build up some expectation towards one of our strongest teams being fielded against the Leicester, for the Leicester match, should I say. We will, as we get closer to this time, talk about it, talk about the ins and outs of who's fit, who's available, and who will start. But in the meantime, guys, there's a lot of silver linings coming up. It's just this Dennis one that does slightly worry me. Let's move on to the next item on the news. Carlos Corberán has been sacked by Marinakis as coach of Olympiacos after, I think, about 6 weeks in charge. This guy, as you guys I'm sure are well aware, was the Huddersfield manager. So not only did we take their 2 best players, we also took their manager and shoved him into Olympiacos. Marinakis having played with his new toy for 6 weeks, seems to have got bored of it and chucked it away into the hypothetical trash, should we say. So, Huddersfield, apologies, but your destruction has been completed by Marinakis, and he wasn't even that bothered with the final piece of your jigsaw puzzle. However, let's bring this back to Nottingham Forest, and what does this mean for Cooper? Because a few fans are thinking, worried, or some are actually happy that maybe this will be Cooper's head next on the chopping block. I tend to wholeheartedly disagree. Why? A couple of things. One, they're still pushing for Cooper to sign the contract that's been sitting there. I don't know if there's a lack of pens at the City Ground or what, or if Cooper, just doesn't want to just yet. But there is obviously a clear and underlining issue with the contract negotiations, and they seem to be more from Steve Cooper's side than the club. We were told many, many weeks ago that everything was in verbal agreement, everyone was happy with the terms on the contract, and it was just a matter of getting the transfer window closed before ink was put onto the paper. However, it still hasn't been signed, but there are promising signs. For example, there's a new data analyst coming into Nottingham Forest who is coming from Swansea. Now, obviously, he's worked with Cooper before, and it shows that the backroom staff is still being generated by Steve Cooper with people he wants. So for me, I see that as a positive sign that the backroom staff are still being brought in who are people that Cooper wants in and around him or has worked with before. So I expect, through no sources at all, that this should be resolved hopefully sooner rather than later. However, what I will say is that if we carry on losing matches on the pitch, Marinakis' patience will run thin. There is no way you have an owner who can be sentimental like maybe we can be as Forest fans. He has invested between 130 and 160 million to back Steve Cooper to get the job done this season. If he starts to see 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 more losses in a row, and Forest start to get cut adrift, he may find himself with no alternative than to pull the trigger. Now, a lot of people say he's not the most patient man. I would argue against that when you look at what he did with Houghton, when you look at what he did with the managers before that. I feel he did show some patience. And I feel with what Cooper achieved last season, he has bought himself credit in the bank. So I don't expect anything to happen. They always say the international break, the first international break of the season, is where you see a lot of manager movement. I don't expect to see that at Forest. I'm praying we don't see it at Leicester until after our match in a couple of weeks' time, because we all know about the new manager bounce rule, don't we? So let's hope we can avoid that with Leicester. But you Forest fans who are like me and are Cooper in, and in Cooper we do trust, bear in mind that we are more sentimental than the owner can be, and if push comes to shove, he may end up pulling the trigger on Cooper. But we are still, in my opinion, a long way away from that. I fully expect Cooper to sort everything out, get us back on the right path and the right track, and I think it will be done sooner rather than later, and hopefully it will start with Leicester. So let's move on. Finally, from me, just a quick kind of side dish story about the supercomputer that predicts the positions of Premier League teams. At the moment, it's coming out saying Nottingham Forest will finish bottom with 31 points. This computer I take with no more than a pinch of salt, if that at all. This computer predicted that Forest would finish, I think, 21st last season in the Championship, and we all know how that came out. It also reruns itself every single week and adjusts itself based on the results of that week. So how is that really a prediction? I would not worry about this at all. I still predict Forest will finish a lot higher in the table than most people give us credit for. But if you have read that story, just ignore it, man. Computers know nothing. Football is played with the heart, it's played with the mind, and it's played on the pitch, not on a computer screen. This is not Football Manager. But just thought I'd bring it to you as I found it quite amusing. Alright guys, that wraps up our news for today. There will be no news tomorrow as unfortunately I am away for one day, so apologies for that. And we will be back on Thursday with all your news, your Predictor League and everything else like that. If you've enjoyed the video today, before you leave, please do not forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and if you would like to become a member for 99p, please do hit the join button just below. Thank you guys for watching, and come on you Reds!